Hey, what's up, guys? Do you all struggle with effectively communicating with your young adults? Now, I know we may have trouble communicating with our children in general, but for this conversation, we're going to be talking about the young adults. So if that's you, just keep on watching. Hello again, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Danielle. Here on this channel, we talk about life. I talk about family. We're going to discuss beauty sometimes. I've recorded a few YouTube shorts surrounded by the Sephora sale, but today we're going to focus on family. More specific, we're going to focus on young adult children. I have two young adult children myself, a 19-year-old and a 21, almost 22-year-old. So I want to share with you, I'm not an expert, but I am a parent. And I just want to share with you all just a few things that I've learned as I navigated my time and my conversations with my young adult children. Really, starting out when they were much younger. I mean, I've always communicated with them from the day that they were born, but as they got older and started developing their own little personalities and opinions and attitudes, I struggled with effectively communicating with them without yelling and without being punitive all the time. So I just want to share with you all a few things that I learned or I have learned through that journey of a small child to young children in middle school to now those young children have graduated from high school and now they are young adults in college. So that's a whole nother dynamic when they're in college like that, because they tend to think they're grown now, they're not paying their bills, but they're grown now, whatever that means. But these are just a few of the tidbits that I've learned and I wanted to share. You can edit them as you see fit, but these are the things that I've learned. So, number one, always have open doors of communication. I have a boy and I have a young lady, and they communicate completely different. One of my children is an introvert, the other is an extrovert. So talking to them and communicating to them on their own level, reaching them where they are. But one thing that I have learned is if I'm ready to talk about a subject and they're not, as long as they know that my door is open, that I am always open with open arms, welcoming them with whatever topic it may be, whether it's sports, whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's I'm struggling in school, whether it's, oh, I want to tell you about this show, or, oh, I want to tell you about this business idea. I mean, my kids are all over the place. I mean, they're brilliant kids, brilliant young adults, but I don't always relate to what they're talking about, but I always have an open door. I always try to let them feel that they can talk to me about anything. And I have a policy that we may not, especially if we're going to talk about a topic that we know may be a little tense, we have this thing where we're like, it's okay to agree to disagree, but we keep the lines of communication open. I recognize what their individual languages are, and I respect it. We don't always have to agree, but I do respect it. One thing that I wanted to show you all is when I communicated with my kids when they were younger. We adopted this little thing that's not necessarily good now for college, but it did work when they were in middle school, especially my daughter. My son, not so much, but he used it as well. But this little mailbox, it's just a little mailbox. It's really like a holder for Santa's letters. It has a little arm to let people know you've got mail. And so what my daughter and I did initially was when she needed to have a conversation about something that she didn't know how to come to me about. Again, this was in middle school. And she didn't know how to talk to me or how to bring up the conversation or how to broach the conversation. We adopted the mailbox system. And so what we would do, we would leave this on her dresser in her bedroom. So in the morning or at night before she went to bed, if she wanted to communicate something to me, she would put it in this box, in this mailbox. And she would put the little door up to let me know that there's mail in there for me. And when she's at school, I would go in and I would read that letter and I would respond to it, and I would put the door back up, the little arm back up, to let her know that now she has mail. If, you know, a couple of days went by and she didn't say anything, or I didn't have any more follow-up or anything like that, you know, I would send her a text, or she would send me a text, say, hey, you know, have you checked your mailbox? So that's kind of how we navigated that. But this wasn't foolproof, but it did open up the doors of communication. It started very tough, hard conversations that maybe she didn't want to talk about it verbally. That it was better, it's kind of like journaling, it was better to get it down on paper. And sometimes when we would start these, she would say something to the extent of, you know, I'm ready to talk about it now, or can we schedule a time to talk? And we would do that. Sometimes we would go from the beginning from the beginning and the end to a conversation or that topic, and we only communicated via this mailbox and this letter system, and that worked for us. So that may not work for you, but it did work for us. So I use this with my son as well. I mean, he's a boy, so he wasn't too in tune to it, but he tried it a couple of times. But he was to the point that he would just leave me a note, or like on his bed or a pillow or something to that nature when he was at school. And so he used the system, but not necessarily the mailbox, so to speak. But I just thought that this was cute. We keep this going. I still keep it in my daughter's room now. My son still has a little container in his room that's there for that purpose if he needs it. It's really like a Darth Vader Star Wars type concoction or whatnot that he uses, but we still use it to this day, and they're both in college. So, but that prompted us to have really good communication skills, to respect one another, to have an open dialogue with one another. So that's just one. So number two, when you are communicating with your young adult children, realize that we are advisors at this stage in their lives, and not, we're their parents. But the way I look at it is this: they've been with us for about 18 years, give or take, right? Some kids graduate from high school a little earlier. Some may graduate a little later, depending on the situation. But for the most part, on average, about 18 years. And the way I look at it is, we've had 18 years to mold them, teach them, educate them, guide them, you know, move them through this thing called life. And once they turn 18, especially after they've transitioned to college or have moved out of the home, we have very limited time and opportunities to actually parent. We will always be their parent. I will always be my children's parent. I will always fill that role gladly. But the way that we've parented from the point up until the point that they're 18 changes. And the way I like to look at it is, when I have a conversation with my kids, I don't tackle that situation in a sense of do this, don't do this. I ask them first, would you like my advice on this issue? Would you like to hear what I have to say? Or do you just want me to listen? Because sometimes I know with my husband, I don't want you to fix it. Sometimes I just want to vent. And sometimes they want to vent. Sometimes I want a solution. But sometimes I just want you to listen. So I ask that question. You know, I listen, and I actively listen. And then I say, hey, you know, I have a few ideas, or I have some advice. But do you want that, or would you rather just kind of knock it out yourself? And depending on what they say, that dictates where we go from there. Sometimes they don't want advice. Sometimes they just need encouragement. Sometimes they just need to be heard. Sometimes they just need our moral support. So don't get so caught up in parenting that we forget, and I'm talking to myself as I talk to you all, that we forget that we can be friends to them also. I'm always going to be mom first, but I can be a friend to them. I can listen. I can encourage. I can tell them when they're right and when they're wrong. I'm never going to sit idly by and let them tell me something that I think is detrimental to their health and to their well-being. But if it's just a matter of should I wear this top versus that top, and they don't want my opinion because I think the top is too short or too tight or too this, sometimes life is the best lesson. Sometimes life is the best lesson, and sometimes we just have to just swallow that, take it on the chin, and just say, hey, we were once there. We didn't always do things the way our parents wanted us to. So open doors of communication, play the role of advisor as opposed to disciplinarian or rule maker, so to speak. Communicate daily. My kids are off in school. My daughter, we talk just about every day. My son, I check in with him in the morning via text. Good morning, son. How are you doing? I hope you have a great day. Sometimes that's it. He'll respond, sometimes via text. Sometimes he won't. Sometimes I'll just call and just say, hey, don't want anything, just making sure okay. If you need anything, just give me a call, give me a text, and that's it. But I try to have open communication with them on a daily basis. And some kids may say that's too much. They may say, hey, and that's something that you need to do also, especially with these kids that are transitioning to college. Get a system before they leave and before you get your little feelings hurt because they're not calling mama. Set a schedule or let them dictate to you what's the best time to call. Should we set up a time to talk on Sundays? Is 2 days a week too much? Is 3? Whatever, just kind of come to an agreement. Hey, I'll call you in the morning or I'll call you at 6 o'clock when I'm done with my classes. But communicate before it becomes a problem and before you get your little feelings hurt, how you all are going to navigate that process. That way, it's understood what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So communicate daily so that when you do communicate with your child, it's not always negative. It's not, why did you do this? And why didn't you go to class? And why didn't you call me? It's you have a pattern of communicating so often, or you have a pattern of communicating with them on a normal basis where every time you talk, it's not about I need money. It's not about I need this. It's not about why didn't you call me. You have a pattern that you've established with them already that them seeing your name come across that caller ID is cool and it's normal because that's what we do. When you talk to them also, no matter how hard it is, no matter how you may look at them and say, hey, they look totally different, something's off, something's this, or just try to resist the urge of pointing out negatives every time you talk to them. Pick your battles. They sometimes are calling because they just need to see your face or they need to hear your voice. But if every time they call you, you point out, oh, I see that spot on your face, and oh, you like you've gained weight, or oh, you look small, or you're eating, they don't want to hear that. Just like you don't want to hear that. I don't want to be critiqued by my parent or by my spouse or by my friend every time they see me. I just want to hang out. I just want to talk. I just want to catch up. So as much as we are nurturers and we're trying to take care of them and make sure that they're okay and that their well-being is top notch, try to resist that. Another is, now we may have covered this, don't give unsolicited advice. If they ask for it, I think we kind of covered that earlier. If they ask for it, by all means. But if they don't, resist the urge. I promise you, you will travel down that dark hole and you will never return. Don't give advice unless they ask you for it. Or unless it's detrimental to their health. And at that point, I don't even look at it as advice. It's kind of like a warning. It's kind of like a, let me give you this nugget for life. So you've been with them all their lives. You know how to navigate that. You know how to tell the difference, but just try not to focus on the negative so much as you want to. Just try to stay in the moment. They've called you, which is great, or you've called them and they've answered, which is even great. Just enjoy your child. Communicate the way they prefer. My son prefers text, although he very seldom sees the text and return the text in a timely manner. My daughter loves to talk. My daughter loves to FaceTime. I don't really like FaceTime, but I suck it up for her. And if I don't feel like FaceTiming, I'll just decline it and call and say, yeah, Lauren, I just really don't feel like, FaceTiming. Let's just talk, or mom just getting up, or whatever the case may be. But meet them where they are. Don't pick up the phone and FaceTime them at 7 o'clock in the morning, because they're probably still in the bed, or God knows what their room looks like, and they don't want you scanning their room as you're looking at them on that camera. Just follow their lead, respect their privacy, respect their little boundaries that they've set up for themselves, and it'll all work out. And some kids just want you to email them. Just email me what you need. My son told me, my freshman in college told me, I told him, I said, sometimes when I'm talking to you, son, I feel like an auctioneer. I only have your attention span for about 2 minutes. And so I have to get it all out and blah, 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 as quickly as I can, because it always feels like he's headed somewhere, leaving out the door, something to that nature. And he told me, he said, no, mom, it's not really that. He said, it's like every time you call me, you have this list of things for me to do. Like, make sure you check your email for advising, and make sure you set your appointment for this, and make sure you. So for me, I have all these things that I want to make sure that he knows, and I don't want to bombard him by calling him multiple times a day. So what I didn't realize, but I'm giving him these little lists. And for him, it's a little bit too much. You've called in the morning. You've given me these lists to do. I'm just waking up. I'm just starting my day. And I really don't want to hear your list, Mom. So I had to acknowledge that and apologize to my child. And say, you know what? You're right. So what we decided, I asked him, what is a better way for me to communicate things to you that need to happen to ensure that you won't forget? And he said, just text me, because I can always, and you can refer me back to that text, he said, when we talk. But that way, the text is there, it's in black and white, the list is there, and if he forgets something, he can always refer back to it. So that was an easy fix. But we communicated. He felt comfortable enough to talk to me about it, to say, hey, Mom, back off. You're pressing me too hard. You're giving me lists. I feel like when I come out of this class, I'm going into another whole class with you every morning with your list. So I had to listen. I had to respectfully listen, respect his boundaries, and adjust accordingly. Sometimes I call my kids, like I said earlier, just to say, hey, have a great day. Just call them to say, was thinking about you, don't really want anything, I love you, have a great day. That means the world, because I guarantee you they'll hang up their phone like, oh, she didn't say anything about my hair, and she didn't say anything about my weight, and she didn't say anything about my room, and she didn't say anything about, she literally just, and those type of conversations, for me and with my pattern, I have noticed that I get more follow-up phone calls from my kids that way. That they don't feel anxious when they call me, or and they will call me to just say, hey, I hadn't talked to you all day. I was just calling to see how you doing, what you're up to, what y'all doing today. And we may be on the phone for 2 or 3 minutes. Or we may be on the phone for 15 minutes. They want to tell me about their day, which is heavenly. But I respect their boundaries. I respect their time. They are young adults, and they have a life outside of being at home and going back and forth to class in high school now. So we just have to learn how to adjust. Lastly, what I will say is, don't look at them as your kids. Look at them as young adults. Now, my children will always be my baby. No matter how old they get, they will always be my babies. But I try to look at them now, especially when we're communicating, or I try to look at them in the vein of, these are little young adults. They are learning. They are making mistakes. They are making decisions. They are striving. So on one end, they're doing great. On the other end, they're making many mistakes throughout life, but that's how they learn. And one thing that I try to say, or that I try to do, and I tell this to my husband, and we remind each other of it, and I think I'll close on this, is don't rob your children or your young adults of the opportunity that is learned when we allow them to fail. Don't rob them of that, because that's how we learned. We learned that when we fall and when we fail, that there is learning in that. But if we come in and scoop them up and pick them up every time they fall, or don't allow them to fall or fail, they won't learn those lessons that we did. And then we're wondering, well, why don't she understand this? And why don't she get this? And why didn't she make the right decision here? She knows better than that. And he know. But no, we didn't allow them the opportunity to fall and to fail. And so when we rob them of those opportunities, we have these little young adults that's stuck between young adulthood and childhood because we're too afraid or too hovering or helicopter parents to allow them to just take off. And they're gonna sputter, and they're gonna go up, and they're gonna go down, and then they're gonna level off, and then they're gonna be okay. And then you will have built such a great foundation of communication with those young adults that whenever they encounter turbulence in this thing called life in the world, that they'll call home, they'll call a friend, and that friend will be you. And you'll know what to say, you'll know how to respond, you'll know how to act, you'll know how not to react. You will know what to do and how to do it. And if you don't know, it's okay to say, baby, I'm not sure. Let's just think about it. Let me call you back or whatever. But we don't have to have all the answers. And they don't have all the answers. And it's okay. But it's a journey. It's learning. I'm still learning. I think one of the hardest things, I thought when they were babies that it was hard. And then when they were toddlers, it was hard. And then, going through middle school and dating and hormones, that was hard. But I think right now, the hardest thing for me in this stage of my life as parenting is parenting those young adults who you have to continually to let them go down a path that you don't think is the right path. And you hate to see them fall, and you hate to see them bump that head, and you hate to see them stomp that foot. But that's the way they learn, because that's the way we learned. But you have to have enough confidence in the fact that you have given them a great foundation, and they'll be okay. They will be okay. They will get it. And whatever they don't know, they'll call home. They'll phone a friend, and that phone a friend will probably be you. And all will be well. And they will turn into these successful, wonderful little young adults that you molded from the time that they entered this world. So I thank you for listening to me. I thank you for entertaining me or allowing me to entertain you. And I look forward to the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, or whatever it is, whatever time it is in your area of the world. But please like and share, subscribe to this channel. We're growing, we're new, but we're gonna keep on growing, and we're gonna keep getting better. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.